Alright, what's going on everyone? As promised, we're going to be doing a little video here covering the Damiki, the hover strolling techniques, and we're going to be talking about kind of what those Elite Series guys are doing, Bass Pro Tour guys are doing. Now that that is all wrapped up, the Bass Pro Tour was at Toledo Bend. They were also at Santee Cooper. Bassmasters just finished up at Toledo Bend and are headed over to Lake Fork this week. So this technique here has been playing for quite a little bit. Started off really heavy last year, and of course here in the winter time, or really kind of going into the spring transition, the Damiki rig, the hover rig, has been absolutely killing it out at these events. Not just at those main stage events, but also your like invitationals at like Rayburn and a bunch of other ones across the country. So this technique is not going away anytime soon, especially with the big push into the forward-facing sonar game. A lot of the older guys that you see on tour, like Wesley Strader, he was doing really well out at Toledo Bend, utilizing a spinning rod, light line, and these very finesse techniques. So depending on which graph you have, which one you're using, I mean, it doesn't really matter too much once you understand the basic fundamentals of the forward-facing sonar game with these small minnow techniques, guys. So we're going to be covering hooks, weights, ways to set them up, different baits that I like to use personally, different baits that are used on tour. Of course, Jacob Wheeler won at Santee Cooper, and Koya Fujita, congrats to both of them on winning their respective events. Both utilizing forward-facing sonar and this mid-strolling, hover-strolling Damiki style techniques. So, you know, last year's classic was won on a Damiki rig by Jeff Gustafson, so big congrats to him again. I can't wait to see the classic this year up at Grand Lake. We're going to see who's going to win that one, see who takes the title. Actually, do me a favor, guys, leave me a comment down below real quick. Comment your guess for who's going to win the Bassmaster Classic, and if you get it right, I'm going to make sure to go down there. We're going to send you a prize pack if you get the winner correct, but I'm going to be paying attention to the little things when it tells me when you post that, so make sure to do it before the classic happens, so be on the lookout for that. But guys, hover strolling is very similar to what I like to compare to like crappie fishing, guys. So that's kind of how I learned this technique, and if you are new to forward-facing sonar, I highly recommend you go out, try to crappie fish. You know, in the summertime, crappie will get in the brush piles very heavily, and the bass have the same instinctual habits as crappie. So going out there with like a little crappie jig, learn how to draw those bass up, and I really break it down in two ways here. So I've got the whiteboard to kind of show what I'm talking about here. Of course, guys, on Tuesdays, we've got the Backlash live podcast over on the Big Bass Dreams channel at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. So if you're on the East Coast, it might be near 9 o'clock, but West Coast guys, we get a lot of West Coast guys in, and Canadians, actually. Shout out to George. He's very active in the chat as we go along there. But guys, there's two main principles that I like to focus on when it comes to forward-facing sonar habits of bass, crappie, and a lot of other fish out there. Drum, catfish, they all do the same exact thing. So what I'm going to do here is draw you a little graph on the whiteboard right there. So you've got your depth right here, up and down, and you've got your range going this way, and this side, this right side of the screen is going to be farther away from you, and let's say your boat is going to sit right here and your cone is shooting out. So when you are fishing for crappie, a lot of the times I like to sit right on top of a brush pile, kind of like this, and I'm going to see those crappie set up in blue. Of course, as always, those crappie are going to sit in the brush pile, kind of stacked up in there, you know, doing their thing, waiting to ambush some bait. And here's the main objective that I like to do. I like to put that bait really close to their heads. You always want to keep that bait above the fish, because think about it, their eyes are on top of their head. They're always looking up, ready to ambush something. So whenever you're fishing, you want to make sure that your bait is above the fish. So I'm going to draw a real crappy looking fish here, so don't judge me. You want to keep your bait above it like that. So this is your bait here going up. Keep it above the fish so that way it actually sees it. Same principle here. So when I'm fishing for crappie, I usually just go straight up and down on them. I'm going to drop my line down like this. I'm going to put that crappie jig right above that fish's head. When that fish sees it, what it's going to do, it's almost going to have like a little seizure. You're going to see that fish start moving. Its tail's going to move. It's going to readjust itself to go for that bait. And what's going to happen is I call it the shake. It gets the shakes. It looks up, wants to come for your bait. But if you don't move that bait, sometimes it'll eat it, right? A lot of the time, fish get instinctually, you know, they have to go chase something to make sure that it's a real thing that they're wanting to eat, because a bait fish isn't just going to sit there and let it eat them. So what you need to do is start bringing your lure up, and this is an old time crappie trick that guys have been doing before forward facing sonar, before even like down scan. You're jigging your minnow up and down slowly, making them move up, react, put it in their face, and move up and make them eat it. So it's the same principle here for crappie. What you're going to do is start raising your rod tip up or reeling just slightly, and then boom, they're going to hit it. You reel that fish in. Now, when it comes to bass fishing, it's a little bit different. So instead of just vertical fishing for crappie, what we're going to do is translate this to a horizontal, which is left-right, and vertical approach. And this is my two-step process that I like to do. All right, y'all. So I just drew a fish out here. Let's say this is about 50, 60 foot up pretty high in the water column. A lot of the fish that these guys are fishing for in the Elite Series and Santee Cooper are very suspended. The ones that I find that are higher in the water column, like this fish here, typically going to bite a lot faster, a lot easier than the ones that start way down here at the bottom. So, and that is mainly due to the hunting attitude of the fish. I find the ones that are extremely low typically don't want to chase. They're sitting there to relax, not look for food. The ones that are a little bit higher in the water column, it's going to be warmer water, so they're going to be more comfortable and they want to move around a little bit more and chase. Bass, I like to focus on the vertical and horizontal planes on the graph. So if you're looking right here, you see the fish, it's pretty high in the water column. A lot of the times the fish that are a lot higher in the water column are more willing to eat, more willing to chase. So what happens is when I see that fish really high, I like to drop my bait maybe 5 to 7 feet behind the fish. It's going to drop down. I'm going to slowly work that bait right above the fish. I like to get it about right here, just slightly over the fish to where they can see it. And then I'm going to start working it slowly up and closer to me. So I'm going to draw that fish in, try to work it to where that fish has to work to get that bait. Depending on what bait it is, you know, specifically with a Damiki technique, it's going to be a lot slower. I like to have either a 1/8 or 3/16 ounce weight. I don't like a very heavy weight. I know a lot of the guys fishing Toledo Bend were using a lot heavier weights. Most of the field, I know Koya Fujita was using a 3/16. Dustin Connell, when he won at Toledo the week before, he was using a, I believe it was 1/4 or 5/8, one of the two, a lot heavier weight on theirs because the wind was blowing really, really bad. This week at Toledo, the winds laid down quite a bit on the last 2 days. But what I'm going to be doing is trying to make that fish work for the bait. So I'm going to move it slightly up in the water column and away from it to where it has to work for it. Now, depending on your fish, depending on the conditions that you're in, is going to really depend on, does that fish want to chase horizontal, or will it just rise up and eat your bait really quickly? And there's a lot of time that goes into developing the skill that, you know, enables you to find out exactly what that fish wants. I've put in so much time on the forward-facing sonar with these Damiki rigs, with swim baits, and it's all the same principle. If you can get that bait near that fish above its head and it reacts to it, what it does is, like I said, that little has like a little seizure, kind of like tenses up, looks at your bait and thinks about eating it. If it does that and doesn't actually chase, you might want to switch up to maybe a slower bait, lighter weight, to where it's not moving as far forward as fast, or you know, higher as fast. So it's really just playing with the baits that you want. Now, let's talk about some of the rigging techniques that I like to use. Of course, typically, a lot of the time, it's going to be done on spinning rods. You can do this on casting. It can be a casting technique. However, the spinning rod is primarily, like 99% of the guys on tour are doing it with a spinning rod. So, first off, you're going to want to have braided line, and you're going to want to run a leader to it. The two best braids that we have for these techniques are going to be the really high-end braids. This is going to be Sunline Overwatch. This stuff is extremely thin. This 12-pound test is actually just as thin as the 10-pound test here from Seagar. So this 12-pound is 0.187 millimeter, and then this one here is 0.205 millimeter. So this is actually thinner than the 10-pound Seagar. So this stuff is extremely like dental floss thin. So this stuff here, the 12-pound is what I would recommend for this. Or if you want to go lighter, you don't want to have as much drag in the water, you can even go down to like a 10 or an 8. I personally use a Seagar Flash Green Smackdown in 10-pound. It is still extremely thin, guys. You really don't need to go thinner than the 10. You can use 8 in the Seagar as well, but when it comes to this, most people are going to be using around that 0.2 millimeter size. So braided line is very important. I like to see my line. It doesn't matter too much to me because I am watching the forward-facing sonar. I can see when that fish goes for the bait, and I can also feel it very well. I like to have a very sensitive spinning rod, guys. I like to use a 7'6" medium light. It's going to have a bit of a backbone, but a very soft tip to where I can work that bait and make it do exactly what I need it to do. A lot of guys on tour are using more drop shot style-esque rods where it's a 6'10", maybe a 7 foot. I like that longer rod to keep them pinned. If you watch Koya at Toledo Bend this past week, he gives them the juice, guys. When he sets the hook, it is full on. Sets the hook, and that fish is getting in the boat. I don't think he lost a single fish, and he had a lot longer rod, light line, and a very light hook, guys. He was using a little tiny 3/16 ball head jig. I'm not sure exactly the ball head jig he was using, but he was using a depth Sakamata shad and a Jackal drift fry. So some highly recommended ones that I like to use personally are going to be the Picasso Speed Drop 1/4 ounce here. The 3/16 is also amazing. The beauty of the Speed Drop is it gets down to your fish extremely fast, has an ultra sharp Gamakatsu hook, and they come in a bunch of different colors. I love the unpainted one. The white one works just as well. Has a big eye on it. Not that it makes too much of a difference in a little more darker water. You know, Texas waters, not super clean, so it doesn't matter too much to me whether it has an eye or not. But if you're using something like a Z-Man plastic, the keepers on this is amazing. I like to take one of the keepers off, especially the top one, just so I can get this hook a lot higher in the bait so I have a little more gap to hook that fish. So this is a 2/0 hook on this 1/4 ounce Picasso here. Absolutely love the Speed Drop. Another great one is just going to be the standard Smart Mouth jig heads here. They come in a wide variety of sizes, shapes, hook sizes, so you have a lot of room to play with these. The beauty of the Speed Drops is it's a 90-degree hook angle, which is a very big key when it comes to the Damiki rig, because it spreads your weight out to where a lot of that head weight is forward and that bait sits perfectly horizontal in the water, and it's a very natural approach. A new technique coming out, guys. Core Tackle is starting to make a big push into the hook game with more custom hooks. The Tush is a swim bait hook. It's a core molded hook, and this one is very similar. This is an Ozark rig hook. If you're familiar with Fish the Moment, they do awesome stuff over there. But this Ozark rig hook works very well for a hover rig, just the same as you would do with like a 90-degree jig hook like this, with a little Nico weight in there, and nail weight. But these guys you can slide straight into your fluke style baits, your shad style baits, and it will sit pretty vertically in the water because all that weight is distributed across the hook. So that's another great option there. Another classic one, the hover rig. So you're going to be using a 90-degree jig hook like this. It's going to be a size 1. We have 1/0, and we've made little packs like this just for you. And a Nico weight, guys. This is a 1/16. A lot of the guys will use like the 1/4 ounce ones, break them apart. BMC makes some really good ones. So I absolutely love these for the hover shot technique, where you're using the hook here. You're going to insert the hook into the middle of the bait, pops out the top, tie on, and then you can use the nail weights, insert it into the nose of that bait, and it is a very effective way to catch fish. Now, when it comes to different style hooks for like hover rigging and stuff like that, the 90-degree hook is very good. The weedless V-bend wacky by Hayabusa is very, very effective as well. It's a lot longer shank hook. That hook point sticks up just slightly, and it is weedless. You can use almost any drop shot hook or wacky hook and rig it that way. However, your hookup ratio is very, very heightened when you use a 90-degree jig hook like this, and they're also a lot stronger than a lot of those hooks out there on the market. So when it comes to baits, here are going to be some of my top shad profile baits, and I have also got some other ones that are going to be great options as well. Maybe a bulkier profile, something a little different. But kicking it off, Berkley makes the power switch right here. These guys are pre-rigged, hover rigged. It's got the weight up in the front. It's got 90-degree line tie, about half an inch back. They have multiple different sizes of these and colors. These are super awesome, forward-facing sonar, optimized for you to catch fish. Edwin Evers caught a lot of fish on Toledo Bend with this. Justin Lucas was catching fish on that as well. Those are super awesome. A very, very popular soft plastic bait with the Z-Man plastic, guys. It's going to be the Baby Z2. This is extremely popular for your Strike King guys on tour. It is extremely strong. It's got the Z-Man plastic in there. So, I mean, like I said on the Speed Drop guys, how it has that keeper on there, you can put these on and, I mean, go days, weeks, maybe a month without having to change your lure out because they are so strong. But the Baby Z2 primarily, especially this early time of the year, the shad is really, really small, usually grouped up, and a smaller profile bait is getting the job done. Great one from V&M is going to be the vertical shad, a very shad profile. It's got a very deep belly and stabilizing fins to slow that bait down, keep it on top of the fish. Got a bunch of different colors. French Pearl is a great one. It's going to have a clear underbelly. It's going to have a frosted back. So this guy, super awesome, and highly recommend these. V&M has gone through some changes. They have a 3-inch version. I believe they also have a 4-inch version coming out as well. And of course, you can't forget about the Champ Minnow from Berkley. This is also going to be another very shad style bait. It's going to have a deeper belly, not as deep as that vertical shad, but it has a tail that kicks side to side like this instead of up and down, which you see on a lot of other ones. So it's a lot more finesse. It's got power bait mixed in there, and I absolutely love the Berkley power bait and max scent. So you can check these out, and you can also check the little power or the max scent ones. So super awesome, a little bit thicker body, so great for something like the Ozark rig or just any normal ball head jig or something like that. So there's enough meat on this one to where it can actually get a good good hold on the jig head that you're using. So that is super awesome. So my last two plastics and recommendations for you if the going gets real tough and you need something a little bit different. The Spunk Shad. This is a 3.5-inch Spunk Shad from Missile Baits. And this is a little collaboration they did. One of my favorite colors is Frosted Purple. It's going to be very, very clear with like a little purple hue in it. When you hold it up to the light and look through it, it's going to turn almost green, almost like a little bait fish. This 3.5-inch is extremely deadly. Now you can use this on chatterbaits. You can use it on a hover rig like we're talking about. You can use it just on a ball head and fish it. A-rigs, it's a very effective lure. The little tail has a little bulb at the back, so that tail just barely twitches when your fish are getting really, really finicky. This can be a great option. It's a great shad profile, so check those out. And also, last one here, might be under the radar for a lot of you, but the Berkley Max Scent Flatworm has just straight caught them. For me, over the years when these came out, I think it was like 4, maybe 5 years ago, the flatworm is extremely deadly. It has a very bulbous tail, but it sits very horizontal in the water. I highly recommend this on a hover rig. Stick your hook very, very far back. Stick your weight very far forward in the nose, and it will sit just perfectly level. That tail, as you move it, is going to move quite a bit, and it's going to be a lot different action than any of your shad style baits out there. So whether you're using these for smallmouth up north, or you want to try it out on a drop shot or hover rig down here in Texas or anywhere in the country, guys, I hope these little tips helped you. If you're fishing for these suspended fish with your forward-facing sonar, don't forget these tips, guys. Keep it above their heads at all times. Never drop it. Once they see it and start chasing, don't drop it back down. Always move it up and move it forward away from them. And if they get to the point where they slow down, they aren't speeding up anymore, just reel that sucker in, cast back on them, get it above their head, and see if you can work them like that. That's a big thing that guys aren't telling you. Don't waste your time trying to drift. Make sure that don't waste time getting that fish all the way up to the boat. Just reel it in, make another cast, and maybe he will trigger. So guys, I hope this helped you. If it did, again, leave a comment down below who you think is going to win the Bassmasters Classic, and if you choose it right, we're going to send you a little prize pack. But I hope this helped, guys. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.